want you to burn body fat. I want you to put on muscle, and we are here to help. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Asheville Fitness Podcast. If you guys are new to this channel, we are all about getting into the best shape of your life, getting shredded, putting on muscle, and burning body fat. So, if you want to do all those things, stick around. We got a great episode for you. And before you guys go anywhere, you guys know what to do. Hit the like button, hit the bell notification, hit the subscribe button. I know I did that in reverse order, but it helps me out and do it for the algorithm. So, today I want to talk to you guys about a few things that I wish I knew before I decided to drop 60 pounds. Now, some of you are probably saying, why did you decide to drop 60 pounds, right? Well, I was fat, right? Nobody wants to be fat, right? So what was going on at the time? So I was a personal trainer at the time, and I was going through a really, really dark time in my life, right? I was depressed, I was anxious, I was in a really, really bad relationship, right? So what did I do? I decided to say, okay, well, I'm going to eat my emotions, right? So I would go on down to the local, ShopRite. I used to live in New York at the time. How you doing, right? And we had ShopRites. And I would go there and I would buy a DiGiorno pizza. I'd buy French fries. And anytime I felt depressed or anxious, I would pop in a movie and I would eat my face off, right? And it didn't occur to me that I was like eating my emotions, right? And a lot of people actually do that. They're totally unaware, right? So lo and behold, I went from a 180 pound, pretty jacked kid, competitive bodybuilder, to a 210 pound fat slob, right? Now listen, I'm not trying to be mean to you. I'm being mean to myself because that was just at the time, I had a better standard of how I wanted to look and be, right? However, I learned to forgive myself and I moved on. So what wound up happening? I wound up breaking up with this person, and good for both of us. And it set me on a journey, and I said, I want to do a bodybuilding competition again, right? And in the back of my head, I knew that I needed to drop at least 50 to 60 pounds, right? So I said, okay, I'm motivated, I'm going to do this, right? So I set a couple of parameters for myself. I said, okay, so I know what to do as a trainer. I've done this before, right? And now looking back on it, I really wish I could have did a couple of things differently, but what are you going to do, right? So here's what happened. I said, okay, I am going to give myself 160 grams of protein. That is going to be my goal weight. That is going to be the amount of protein that I'm going to get. I do that a little differently now, but it was going to work, right? And I was going to set my carbohydrates at 200 grams of carbohydrates and 60 grams. I knew I was going to be in a caloric deficit, right? And I set myself out on this journey, and I wound up losing 60 pounds. I went from 210 pounds to 155 pounds. Now, looking back, with a clearer lens, there's a few things I wish I would have did differently, right? Weight loss is kind of like a stock market, right? It's gonna go up, it's gonna go down, it's gonna go up, it's gonna go down. It's not like this linear, straight shot down. Now, if you're having a linear straight shot down really quickly, what you're gonna wind up seeing is that you're gonna lose a lot of weight really quick. Now, on the surface, you might be saying to yourself, well, Rick, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to lose weight like that. Well, hold your horses, right? People associate weight loss with looking better. Now, in theory, yes, you will look great, you will look better, no problem. But if you do it the wrong way and you lose weight faster, you might actually get fatter. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, how am I going to get fatter if I'm losing weight? Well, hear me out. What some people do, and I didn't technically do this, but some people actually do this, is that they subtract a ton of calories. They put themselves in like 1,000 calorie deficit, right? Let's just say they were eating, 3,000 calories, and then they decide to drop themselves by 1,000. Kaboom, right? So now they're in a 1,000 calorie deficit, and they wind up losing muscle mass, right? So if they do their BMI again, or they check their body fat, they wind up having a higher body fat percentage, but a lower body weight. Crazy concept. So that's what I wish I would have did, because I put myself in a pretty big deficit. I was eating, when I was quote unquote bulking, I was eating about 3,000 calories a day, and then I went down to 1,600 calories. That's nuts, dude. That is nuts. So what I wish I would have did was subtract my calories, put myself in a 200 calorie deficit, and lose 1 pound per week, right? Because what's that gonna do? That's gonna help me maintain muscle mass. And you need muscle mass to burn body fat, right? You need muscle mass to look good, okay? I don't care what anybody says, right? So what's one thing you can do? Like I said before, you could put yourself in a 200 calorie deficit, right? And you can get on a weight training program. So you need to lift heavy weights, right? And you need to put yourself in a 200 calorie deficit at least, right? Those are some parameters that you can follow, right? Because I want you to get into the best shape of your life. I want you to look shredded, right? You're not gonna look shredded if you put yourself in a 1,000 calorie deficit and don't work out, okay? That's number one. Number two, I would watch the caffeine. Okay, so when I was getting ready for my show, I was so hungry at the time because I put myself in such a big caloric deficit that I knew that caffeine was gonna be able to subside my hunger, right? So what did I do? I drank a ton of coffee. I think I was drinking 5 cups of coffee a day, right? And I was taking pre-workout on top of that. So why do I say watch that? Because what wound up happening was I would try to go to sleep at night and I couldn't go to sleep, right? Because I was in 1,000 milligrams of caffeine, surplus, right? So I was just drinking caffeine over and over again just to subside the hunger because I put myself in a caloric deficit. See that big pattern of just explosions happening because you're just trying to lose weight and you're doing things extremely, right? So I didn't learn this until years later when I was trying to figure out why I couldn't sleep, right? I was having such a hard time sleeping and I realized it was because I was drinking caffeine so late into the day. So one thing that you can do, right, is you could stop taking caffeine around 12 p.m. because you remember there is a amino acid, now correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, right? It's called, it starts with an A. I'll put it down into the description. I totally forgot. But it builds up over time, but when you drink caffeine, it stops it from building up over time so that you can't go to sleep, right? You need that build up so that the melatonin can kick in and you can fall asleep, right? Because when you're asleep and you get into that deep, deep REM sleep, you burn body fat like it's nobody's business, right? You recover. So if you're trying to lose weight and you're not sleeping, you're gonna get fatter, right? Well, maybe not fatter. Yeah, you probably will get fatter because if your hormones are on the line and your body's not able to reset, right? You're not gonna burn body fat. So the best thing that you can do is because caffeine stays in your system for at least 10 hours. That's what the research says. So if you're gonna have caffeine, have it at least 10 hours before bed, right? So don't take anything, after 12, right? And that's what helped me with my sleep. And the next thing was, this was super helpful. And I actually wound up doing this during my prep. Program your carbohydrates before your training. Remember, if you are trying to get in shape, the place where you need all of your energy expenditure is going to be when you train and in the gym. That's it, right? The rest of your day, what are you doing? You're working, you're doing X, Y, and Z. You need to put as much effort as possible into training, right? Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, well, I have a hard labor job and I pick things up and I put them down. Listen, your job is not making you gain muscle, right? When you go into the gym, that is when we're breaking down muscle so that we can fall asleep, right? Because we don't have caffeine and we can grow. So the best thing you can do is program your carbohydrates, right? So what I did was when I was in prep, let's just say I had about 200 grams of carbs to spare. So I would eat 60 grams of carbohydrates before I went to train, right? I'd wait like a half hour, an hour. Then I'd go train. Then immediately after I was done working out, maybe an hour or so later, depending on when I had my meal, I would have another 60 grams of carbohydrates, right? To replenish myself. And they were low glycemic carbohydrates, okay? Low glycemic is gonna digest slower, it's gonna prevent you from being hungry. So that was another, level up for myself at that point. And then I was able to distribute the rest of my carbohydrates throughout the day until I tapered off into the night, and my last meal didn't have any carbs in it whatsoever because I don't need that energy at nighttime, right? And I was able to burn body fat. By the way, bonus tip, if you're a little bit hungry at night and you're trying to lose weight, that is a good thing. That is not a bad thing. So many people think that they're not supposed to be hungry when they're losing weight. Yes, you're going to be a little uncomfortable. Yes, you are going to be a little bit of hungry when you are losing weight. That is totally okay, right? You don't have to suffer, but it's okay to be a little bit hungry. So guys, if you guys found this helpful, do me a favor. Can you hit the subscribe button? Can you hit the like button and share this with people who need to know? Remember, this is the Asheville Fitness Podcast. I want you to get into the best shape of your life. I want you to burn body fat. I want you to put on muscle, and we are here to help. Guys, connect with us down below, but until next time, you know the deal. Stay happy.